So it seems like the lesson from this lecture, the big lesson, is we couldn't be allies with both Pakistan and India at the same time. We had to choose one. So which one should we have chosen?
Oh, well, our primary enemy was pretty much the Soviet Union for the duration of the Cold War. It had to do with whatever the problem of the day was, and Pakistan had a very critical location, and so we needed it for a whole bunch of things. And you can see how that works. So while you need them, you pay a lot of money to them, and presumably the money's worth it for them for the hassles of dealing with a difficult tenant. Nowadays, the relationship with India is changing. In fact, it has changed because their big buddy, Russia, is, well, after the end of the Cold War, instead of being the big friend, it was the big nuisance, not so much for India, but for everybody else. And now for India, its primary adversary is China, without a doubt. And the United States, I think, is looking that China poses the primary threat. And to the extent that both of them see it that way, that will make them align, and Pakistan less so.
It sounds like at the time it was right to choose Pakistan as the main ally for the United States.
Well, we tried to choose India too, but yeah, we tried to do them simultaneously. But India's further south, right? And so for a long time, before we got satellite imagery, you want to have listening posts and things up in Pakistan. So India just simply doesn't have the location for that. So that was the original reason for interest in Pakistan.
I want to better understand why the Soviet Union was such a charismatic example for countries that were decolonizing,
Oh,
like India.
I think go back and put yourself as a generation of what your life experience was. If your life experience was World War One, the total butchery of it. So you're telling young men your age, go, you're in a trench. I want you to go up and over the edge onto oncoming machine gun fire. We know what's going to happen when what happens, right? And they're literally in battles like the Somme, they're losing hundreds of thousands of people. I don't mean casualties. I mean dead. And so, and then you have the Great Depression afterwards. And then add to it, India's been colonized by a bunch of really opinionated white people, right? And transferring a lot of wealth out of India to England. And so you look at Marxism, and boy, it sounds plausible, right? It sounds like these evil capitalists, they're just wasting lives. And surely this is the explanation. Now, the technicalities of Marx's labor theory of value don't actually turn out to be accurate. It's not just labor that produces value. Like Silicon Valley, you understand it's what comes up here produces a tremendous amount of value. And the Marxist theory doesn't recognize that. And so there are massive flaws in theory. And then when you put communism into practice, if you want to have equality, which is what they wanted, if you're going to have equality, you're not going to have any liberty, right? Because in order to make it equal, you just expropriate and then you divvy it out to everybody, and there's no liberty in that, right? And another piece about democracies, and even flawed ones, even if they have a semi-free press, a lot of the icky news bubbles up, but in dictatorships it doesn't, right? So you compare the seamy sides of some democracies that aren't doing that well, and then to the public, the PR thing that the dictatorships are presenting. So you can picture Nehru of his generation. He's sick of British, right? And so Fabian socialism, he's not for killing lots of people to impose socialism. He has a much lighter touch than Stalin.